What up? This is Marco Polo.
What's going on, y'all? This is Masta Ace, new album Richmond Hill, and you are checking out AllHipHop.com.
What's going on, world? It's your man Chuck Creekmur, aka Jigsaw, here at One World Studios, here with a pair of legends with a new album, Richmond Hill. Shout out to my man Masta Ace and Marco Polo.
What up? What up?
Marco Polo. We used to play that game back in the day in the swimming pool.
Yo, we didn't have that in Canada.
Really?
I don't think so. I don't remember playing it as a kid.
I'm not familiar.
Yeah.
No?
I'm not familiar with it until I came here and I'm like, that game?
Not
At all. I never heard of that game.
Oh, okay. Well, it's a game where in a swimming pool, one person says Marco, and everybody, it's hide and seek in the swimming pool, basically.
Yeah, one person closes their eyes and says Marco, and the other say Polo, and they're supposed to, with their eyes closed, find the people in the pool.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have to keep saying Polo over and over?
Yeah. Marco,
Okay.
Polo, Marco.
That's right.
You know what I mean?
Got you.
Yeah. Anyway, little suburban thing we used to do. So tell us about this album, Richmond Hill. Talk about it.
Am I setting
It's
it
a
off?
personal album.
Yes. Not my idea as usual. So Brooklyn Story was our first record, and that kind of talked about my journey to New York. And now Ace has taken the story backwards to my high school years in, to be clear, Richmond Hill, Ontario, Canada, not Richmond Hill, Queens, where I grew up. I was born in Canada. And it talks about a little bit of my childhood and high school, and you get to hear my parents, and a lot of interesting things. So it's like going back in time, and that was all Ace's idea.
And a sequel at the same time.
Which Ace always does, because that's what you do with Disposable and Long Hot Summer. That's your thing.
The album starts with Marco's, the day he was born, his father in the hospital. And, we go all the way up until his teenage years when he went through some trials and tribulations. But he tells the story. He's the narrator.
How does that work for you as an MC, telling another person's story?
It's fun. I love writing. I just love writing in general. So I love being able to tell other stories. And from the years of me knowing Marco and hearing bits and pieces of his story with his parents, migrating from Italy and all of the whole nine, I was like, this is a very cool story and people should know about you. And so I felt like I had told a lot of my story already over the course of my albums. And this is a perfect opportunity to tell another cool story.
And from your perspective, Marco, whose idea was it? Was it your idea?
To
Ace. I would never
tell
in
his
life say,
story?
hey, let's make two albums about my life. Like, no.
No, it was my idea, but I just felt like it was perfect thing to do. At the time, Marco's dad was very sick, and so I just felt like the right thing to do at the right time.
Now, Marco, you get really personal on this album. You talk about, in particular, drug use.
That is correct.
Yeah, talk about that a little bit. I mean, I look at you and what I've known or witnessed, I would never have thought that.
Well, good. I'm glad that I don't look like a crackhead. But yes, for those out there that don't know, when I was very young, I had trials and tribulations with drug addiction really early. And I started around 13 years old, and it escalated very fast within 2.5 years. To the time I was 16, I completely stopped. And when I say escalated, smoking weed, smoking cigarettes, to literally smoking crack and doing heroin, minus the needles. And my parents mortgaging the house to pay for me to go to the best treatment center in the United States. It was a place called Hazleton in Minnesota, which I'm talking about like $100K a year type situation. So my parents throwing all the dice on the table like, we got you, which is crazy to this day. And that's what keeps me sober. I'm like, if I smoke a blunt, that's $100,000 blunt. Yeah. So even if that's the motivation, that's part of the story. And I literally left at 16 and never drank or did drugs again, which is the stats on my age staying clean are like 1 in a million.
Right.
Usually every kid I was in rehab with, and I was with a lot of famous kids, I can't say their names, instantly back at it as soon as they're gone. Yeah. So God bless them for doing that, and it put me on a musical path because I replaced that addiction with learning how to make beats.
Very hip hop story.
Hearing that story, privately, I just felt like he shouldn't hide this story. Like the public should know this because he's such an example of what it is to leave addiction behind and excel at something else and just kind of show the world. And so as much as I asked his permission, are you cool with me revealing this? Because I felt like these interviews would happen and he would get to tell that story because he never told that story publicly ever.
Yeah, that's crazy. And then, you both, well, you didn't meet in Brooklyn, right? How did you guys get together?
We met in a studio in Manhattan called the Cutting Room.
Okay.
Marco was an intern there.
Okay.
And I didn't know him from a can of paint. I was there working on some songs for my album, A Long Hot Summer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was actually waiting for Beatnuts to come through to do this song for the album. And when I was leaving, you know, the skinny, scrawny kid comes up and, hey, man, I do beats.
That was my voice, huh? That's still my voice, huh?
Can I give you a CD? I'm like, yeah, give me the CD. I took the CD and, you know, I went home with it. And in those days, when people gave me beats, I would check them out to see what they're about. And I really liked the drums. I heard something there. So I hit him. I think I emailed him back and was like, yo, send some more. And that's how the relationship started.
He called me on the phone.
He called you?
Yeah, because I'll never forget that call. He called me and was like, got the beats, let's either send more. I feel like that first CD, there was some things we used, but we'll always be in debate over that. But that's generally what went down. And it's the same studio that Just Blaze got his start at.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's interesting. He had just left and I started interning there and it was the perfect place. I never wanted to be an engineer. I just wanted to get my beats. And it was a lot of things going on there. It was Quali's in Studio A and Benzino was in Studio B and just...
Wow.
That was my introduction moving from Canada into literally a studio with cool things going on.
How was your, I always like to talk to people who migrate to New York. How was your transition? Was it hard?
No, I was ecstatic. I was ready to leave Toronto because I knew at that time, which was 2001, right after 9/11, being in New York held more weight for working in music. Now it's like you can kind of be anywhere, but at that time, being in New York still had more value. I'm not saying it don't have value, but then it was like I can go to a show and pull up and give my beats to people directly that I like or be in the studio. So I was excited. And that's honestly what helped me because if you think about moving to New York to do music or anything, you could talk yourself out of it really quickly. And my dad was very confused. He's like, you're going to do what?
Yeah.
You're gonna go do rap beats
Right.
live in some basement in Queens and like that's your plan? I'm like, yep.
That's
illegally, right? Because I was here illegally for a good 2 years, had to sneak in a couple times. And while I'm interning, I'm like hiring a lawyer to try and get my papers right. I couldn't see my family for 2 years because I couldn't go back. It was crazy, man. And now I'm a citizen 20 years later.
As it's all falling apart.
Exactly. Now,
right. Now, Ace, talk to me a little bit about the features and the cohesion between the artists that you guys worked with.
Well, the first feature that we had was a group that Marco, I mean, I was familiar with them, but Marco had the relationship, Coast Contra, out of the West Coast.
Dope.
And I thought that they were incredible. And we had this beat that was just way different than all the rest of the beats on the album. He's like, you know, what do you think about Coast Contra on this? And immediately I was like, I could see that because they got the right energy for this beat. And so I let Marco kind of facilitate because he had the relationship. He reached out and they made it happen. And they sent the vocals like it wasn't even like a long wait. Like sometimes with these features, you're waiting, you know, weeks and weeks. But they sent the vocals immediately and they were incredible. They set the song off. It was so good that we was like, let's just drop this right now.
Yeah, shouts to them. I did the hook.
To let people know that, you know, we have an album coming out. And that was the perfect set off. And then we got other features as well. Blue. You can talk about Blue.
We got
Spazz.
Yeah, Blue Spazz. Yeah. We got the great Shay Noir. We got C Red.
Buffalo. Yep.
We got the legend Inspector Deck. Who else we missing? Of course, Stricken Words.
Speech
from Arrested. Yes.
E. Smitty. MC wise, I know I'm forgetting someone as usual.
I think that's everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
What got these people to be the features?
I'm big on the features fitting the song and the beat. And so, you know, Marco's more of a just out this clear blue. Hey, let's get such and such to be on the album.
Not anymore, but that's one thing I give him props that I learned for is no randomness. Like let him pick a beat he likes, lay his bars. Then he sits and he's like, what makes sense? Who
will sound right on this joint, you know?
So I'm better.
So that was really the process, you know, the Inspector Deck joint called Hero, you know, it was like, okay, who can kind of embody this energy of Hero and have that right voice and fit this beat and Deck was, I think Deck was your idea, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't know. It could have been a joint, names thrown on the table and we both agreed.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's my homie. So, yeah. But we build about it. It's not random. Sometimes I'll just be like, we should do a joint with this person. And he's like, we'll do a joint with that person when it makes sense to do a joint with that person.
Right.
See, Marco's got these barter relationships with these artists where it's
a
like,
lot of people owe me.
I gave you 2 beats. I need this verse.
Right.
And so, you know, that helps.
But it's not like that. But yeah.
Oh, but it is.
Well, we cash in when the time is right,
Right.
and we definitely did. But because the songs made sense, like there's no randomness. Everything is calculated, and it makes it. What's best for the song is the goal. So,
And what I love is that everybody brought their A game. Shay Noir, Blue, absolutely, Speech, Deck. Everybody brought their A game. And younger artists, I love the fact that some of them are younger.
Yeah.
Coast Contra, and and it doesn't feel forced or you know what I mean.
Were you familiar with C Red, the other female artist that's on there?
I wasn't.
So how I discovered C Red on Instagram.
Okay.
She would just always post these videos of her rapping to other producers' beats.
Oh, I think I've seen her.
It'll be
in
like
her
a
scrubs,
Yeah,
in
I
her
have seen her,
scrubs,
not the scrubs, in the lab coat.
Yeah,
in the lab coat.
Yeah, I have seen her.
Yeah,
So she at the time she was in med school.
Oh,
crazy.
So I didn't know any of this. I thought that was just her little, I guess
shtick.
her stick. Yeah, I'm gonna just rap in the lab coat. But then I found out that no, she's actually in medical school and about to be a doctor. And so I just thought she was dope. I sent it to Marco because I always, see what he thinks. He's like, yo, she's dope. I'm like, yo, I'm gonna reach out. And I reached out, and that's how the conversation started. She was honored to, be asked, and she sent me a verse, and I was like, hold on, you should hear my verse first, because I didn't give her any direction initially. I just sent her the beat, and I told her what, roughly what the song was about, and she wrote a verse. But then I was like, nah, it's kind of got to be in this particular style, because the song's called Inside Out, and so I'm outside in. Sorry, outside in. So I'm all my lines end in outside, outside. So I was like, your line's got to end with inside. So I sent it to her with my verse.
That was
like, got it, and she
nailed it.
And she nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a dope joint too. Life music is so we have thug music, we have trap music, hustling music,
murder music.
Now we got life music. Talk about that song, and is this a movement? Because it's a pretty deep record.
I just felt like there was just so much music out there that, that glorified the destruction of people and the destruction of lives, and I just felt like it was time to do something opposite that. And so I actually wrote that song. I was listening to that beat. I was in Barbados. Me and my wife were on vacation in Barbados, and I was actually on the city bus going into town to do some shopping. And
Barbados has a city bus?
Yeah.
Oh. Okay.
It's like the little yeah, they're buses.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, sorry, Barbados.
Yeah, nah, absolutely.
I mean, shade you or nothing.
So I just put the headphones on, and I'm on the bus, and this is like in the height of COVID, masks on, and I'm just looking at the environment, the poverty outside of the bus windows, the people on their way to work, and just folks just trying to get through life. And I was just like, the lyrics just started coming to me. I was like, life music. This is what this is really about. So that's why I went that route with it.
Adult contemporary has been thrown around in hip hop too. Similar kind of little nuance. But do you, as hip hop is getting older, right? It's still young, but it's getting older, and the people like yourself, Nas, you, there's a few others who are standing pretty firm in the artistry as well as the content. The content is becoming more meatier, but not necessarily as popular.
Right.
So it's kind of hard in my world. There's a relevance conversation to be had too.
Right.
I guess the question is, how do you balance that out? This maturer version of hip hop with the commerce and the business and things of that sort.
I don't feel like we focus on the commerce at all or the business at all, because we know who our fans are. We there's a clear understanding of who messes with our music. We know them, they know us. There's expectations on both sides, and we just try to deliver honest music that's honest. It's not trying to chase a formula or chase the radio or chase, female fans between 18 and 25. Like, there's none of that thinking in it. It's just honest music. That's the perspective that I write from, and I just expect my fans will embrace what we do.
And what do you say about that? Because musically, similar thing.
We're blessed. We get to do what we love and not think about those things. I mean, with confidence, you can never hear a Masta Ace Marco Polo song and say, "Oh, they were right there. They were trying to ride this new wave." Like, we don't. I just make music that I love to hear when it comes to the production and the beats. I know for the most part what he's looking for, what inspires him. I get in his zone, and you just kind of channel what's going on in your own life. That's the thing, it can only be what things change. I'm older now. When I was young and moved to New York and didn't have money and I was interning, that's gonna affect how my beats sound. They're gonna sound angrier. They're gonna sound grimier.
Right.
Now I'm older. I'm less angry. I'm more chilled out, and it's actually a perfect fit. So, yeah.
That's funny. I used to rap years ago, and man, I was angry. I was so angry.
But that's
And
what
now
is.
it's like, I wonder, I always wonder, like, how do they keep doing it? I know you're not that angry
Can be.
anymore.
Right, but even if you listen to like what you grew up listening to
Yeah.
now, like what I like to listen to has completely changed. I still have love for certain things, and
Yeah.
there's a moment, but
Right.
now I listen to some stuff and I'm like, whoa, I can't do that right now. That's
name somebody you can't listen to now.
I don't want to do that. I don't want.
Well, I'll name mine, and I say this with the utmost love and the utmost respect. But the Ghetto Boys, I have to pick and choose what I listen to.
Interesting.
Because back then, when they were hot, my pops had just died, and I needed the most angry music, but also like they had a political side as well.
Mhm.
So I was listening to all of it, and just it all was like, and then there was others too that were lesser versions of them. But I was like, I'm lifting like 1,000 pounds of weight, and just needed to get all the energy out. So, but at the same time, they had songs like Diary of a Madman, where they're just talking absolutely crazy stuff.
Right.
So you can't name anyone, is what you're saying, basically.
I mean, it's more specific to like concepts, like something like I grew up listening to the first Gravediggers album with RZA, Prince
Right.
Paul. Like they talk about killing themselves for 20
Right.
songs. Like the beats are amazing, but now I listen to it and I'm like,
Right.
whoa, like,
Right.
what was going on? Like it's just
Actually, Diary of a Madman was the
was a song
Gravediggers.
on a Gravedigger, and it's
Diary Lunatic was the Ghetto Boys.
For the record, shouts to Prince Paul, RZA. That's a classic album that I love.
Yeah.
But just the content when I was younger, I was like,
Right.
And now I'm like, okay,
right.
It's different now when I listen to it.
Exorcisms and
Yeah, exactly.
bear witness.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I get it. And they did have deep philosophical, it's the resurrector of the this and that. But I get it.
But also to expand on that real quick is what I learned from Ace is that these songs with concepts that have a message and a meaning, those are the ones that last longer. Like the spit, the rah 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 is cool. You have a couple of those on the album, but it's the meat and potatoes of telling a story or sharing your experiences that someone else connects to. Like, yes, like that's my life right now. Those are the songs that help this guy tour forever because people have true connections with the music. It's not just some like rapidy rap. Like you have that balance.
Do you have a kinship with other artists like say Fonte or other people that are in the same lane?
Absolutely. Absolutely, those are. There's plenty. Bro, Fonte was a good one in particular because Marco and Fonte have worked together pretty extensively, and Fonte's been on records of mine, and so he's one of many that we have a kinship with, that we're like minded, and kind of I think musically kind of minded as well. Yeah.
I'm giggling because there's a lot of things that show that he heavily influenced Drake to this day.
Fonte, yeah.
Yeah, man. Listen, well, since you mentioned the name, there's this raging debate about Drake, Most Def. Now, I'm not asking you to pick a side. But the evolution of Drake is something we don't discuss enough to me. When he started out, he was a backpacker, self-proclaimed backpacker. He said it. He idolized Mos Def, I believe. Joe Budden for sure. Little Brother.
Which he had a song with, I
yeah,
think.
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. Little Brother, and others like that.
Right.
15 years later, he's a completely different human being. So I don't know what my question is, but more or less, like but more or less, just discuss. Like you started
I-
out with,
I know what you're gonna ask, and this is what I'll say about Drake. His sensibilities are still there. He's the same guy. He just got introduced to the music industry. He had a hit record. He saw what that looked like. He was like, "Oh, this is easy." So I don't even have to get super lyrical, really. I can do this and win.
right.
And so, of course, some artists are going to chase that and some artists are going to run from that. You know, we all have, I was more of an artist that kind of ran from it. Born a Roll blew up and it was all over the radio and all of that. And I didn't want to chase that. I wanted to stay within the artistry of what I was trying to do. I could have just started making radio records like crazy if but it just didn't feel right to me. But I understand why he did what he did. But for me as an artist, what it comes down to is this: can he rap or not? The answer is yes. The kid is nice. Period. Like, you might not like all the songs. It might be too much singing, too much auto-tune. Listen, I don't like every little diddy bop song that he makes. But when he goes in and goes bar work is quality. So, that's my take on Drake.
Agreed.
Okay. Yeah, mine too. Because first person shooter mode with J. Cole,
Crazy.
It drives me nuts.
Yeah.
That's my new Ghetto Boys.
Got busy.
Yo, you just mentioned daggone Born to Roll and Slaughterhouse and that whole movement. I just had like a super flashback.
Okay.
That was okay. You might run or you might have ran from it, but that was an incredible moment for me. That whole crew, the whole thing. Do you stay in touch with those people?
No.
No.
Okay. Generally speaking, no.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you and Lord Digger fall out or anything?
Yeah, many years ago.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Way
Sorry
back.
to hear that.
No, way back.
Well, I liked it. It was incredible, and I just want to give you props for being the first Slaughterhouse.
Thank you. It was a moment in time. It was about a 4-year blip on my career that was cool in that 4-year period, and I had to keep going and do other things.
You seem to be okay. I believe you to be an introvert. Is that correct?
Am I an introvert? He can answer better.
When you first meet Ace and you don't know him, he doesn't know you, he can appear to be a little cold on the exterior, and his body language might say, "Please don't talk to me." But
that's that.
But
Brooklyn.
that's
I
changing.
never experienced that.
But that's changing. First of all, that was way back, but that's just like Brooklyn body
Right.
energy. It's
Guard up all the time.
But once you become friends with Ace, it's over. Like that's completely the opposite of what I just described. And actually, as I feel like as time goes on, that energy is not you're smiling more, buddy. It's good. You're happy in your life.
Listen, I try to smile more in pictures because you guys smile all the time, and I'm like, I look depressed. Let me try
I
to
didn't
figure
say
out
those words.
Let me try to figure out a smile for this.
I just think it's Brooklyn, man. Growing up in Brooklyn, he's from Brownsville. Like they have all these defense mechanisms I didn't have growing up in Canada. Yeah. Don't talk to me. Don't mess with me. I'm like,
you can't walk around smiling in Brownsville.
We do that in Canada. We're at healthcare. Yeah. We're happy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Right. That's why I wonder, why would you come here?
But yes, people that don't know Ace sometimes will tell me, they're like, he looks like really upset. I'm like, that is just his regular face, and he's good. Don't worry. So
okay. I'm gonna make you honorary introvert, because that's exactly what an introvert is. Once you get used to somebody or the surrounding, you can let your hair down.
But I challenge that because he goes out. He likes to go. He likes to be around people and do things. Like introverts.
Don't you get tired of people?
No, not really.
You don't?
Not really.
Okay. Ace is like me. We get tired of industry people. We like, if you're a real one and you're our family, we love hanging out and spending time. That's the difference. We have no time for bullshit, period. Like,
thank you for defending me, Marco.
Right. There's nothing wrong with being an introvert.
I think that's why we're friends, though, because we're on the same page. We're not industry guys, which is such a blessing and a curse for our career, because I feel at times we should be on, but we're not like that. We're the same energy. We just focus on the music, and whatever happens, happens.
Well,
That's
I tell people the same thing. They think I'm an industry person. I'm like, I am not an industry person. I don't even like the industry, and the industry really don't like me.
Right.
They just have to deal with me because I ain't going nowhere.
Right.
And neither is AllHipHop. So that's kind of the issue there.
Yeah.
And I like it like that because I don't like fake. As soon as you have a hard spot in your life, these people are nowhere to be found. So, and I can't deal with folks like that.
Right.
Period. So let's talk about Hip Hop 50. How did y'all feel about it?
So,
or do you? Because it's still kind of like,
yeah, I mean, they decided. They decided.
Who's they? Can you just define that real quick? Who's they?
I don't know who they is.
Is it a Is it committee?
Right.
Is it a board of directors?
Someone decided that that party that that Kool Herc threw back in '73, that was going to be the earmark because we had a flyer. We know that event happened. There's actual documentation, right? That party happened. There was nobody who came along and said, well, there was a party in '72 that happened over here. Here's the flyer for that. So that was the demarcation. That flyer, that date. What I have said in other interviews is I'm positive that there were similar parties that happened in New York City that predate this particular party that happened in '73. We can't we don't have documentation. We don't have the flyer.
Just so common sense would tell you that.
Yeah. I mean, he didn't just that day decide I'm gonna have this big block party and this is gonna be the beginning of hip hop. Stuff was already happening like that. I don't have a problem with them picking that date, as long as we're clear that hip hop didn't start that day.
Right.
Dudes didn't start breakdancing that day. Dudes didn't start DJing and rapping that day. There was things like this happening previous to that date. So as long as we're clear on that, I'm cool with 50 years. Okay, let's do it. Why not?
Okay. Do you ever feel like you were left out or anything like, or you guys are ever? I mean, and I'm not trying to elicit a negative response or anything, but I will say from my personal feelings is like I saw a lot of the same person at every show, and some of these folks I don't get tired of seeing. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, I'm like, where's Rob Bass? Like, I'd love to see him so I could do my little, you know what I mean? Like, or, Special Ed was very vocal. I would love to see him. You know what I'm saying? I think they paid a lot of homage to pioneers who didn't get any shine
right
throughout the 70s. But I ain't see Masta Ace up there either, that I can recall at least.
I mean, when you say up there, maybe you're talking about television.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I wasn't
jams, here in the city.
I mean, I did about 4 hip hop 50 events around New York City. I mean, there was literally 5 events every weekend in New York during the summer.
Yeah, true.
So I did about 4 or 5 of those, where maybe it was just come up, do a song. I only did one where I did my full set, which was in Brooklyn. It was kind of our thing on Fulton. But there were other events that I was a part of. Do 2 songs, that kind of thing, which is fine. Or the symphony. Yeah. Which is cool. I don't waste time worrying about that type of stuff. I'm pretty confident in what my contribution has been and what it continues to be. All it takes is, a 1-month tour in Europe for us to remember who we are and what we represent, for me.
Facts. So, how does it feel being the most consistent member of the Juice Crew?
Yes. Great.
I'm just saying.
I agree, though. I'm glad you said that.
So,
spectator over here.
When you say consistent, what you really are saying is that I'm the only one that kept putting records out, and maybe that's because I never felt like I made my point or that I got people's attention the way I wanted to, that I felt like I still had more to prove. The average fan would say you don't have anything to prove, but I use that as motivation. So those kind of things motivate me to, because I'm literally in a crew of hip hop greats: Kane, Biz, G-Rap, Shan Shantae, Craig G, Marley Marl. So in order for me to stand out in that group, I felt like I had to continue to you know, reinvent myself, put out quality records, continue to build a fan base over a 30-year period. I have 18-year-old kids that come to my shows, which is it blows my mind. Like these kids are like, oh man, like they want an autograph, and I'm like, how old are you? I'm 17. This is my first concert. I'm like, well, how do you know about me? Oh, my dad told me about you when I was 14 and I couldn't go to the show, and now I can finally go. Like these are the stories.
Let me interject.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that is they all have a new starting point because his consistency and the amount of catalog. So a 17-year-old will be like, I started on Brooklyn Story, or I started on The Falling Season. And it's because there's so much quality and he keeps putting out music that doesn't suck. That's the key word right there.
Yeah.
You know, I think if I had a Raw, or if I had a Road to the Riches or one of those type of records early in my career, I might have fallen back on my laurels and been like, I got my hit. I'm official. I'm stamped. Everybody knows me for this record, but I don't feel like I ever had that moment. So this is me still trying to get that moment.
Okay. Let me ask you this. You know, G-Rap he's my personal GOAT.
No doubt.
You know what I mean? Kane too. You know, me and Kane are like, we joke about it all the time. I walked up to him in the 90s and I was like, you dope, but G-Rap is the GOAT. And then my boy, and then he broke me down. He was like, yeah, mine too. And then I just busted out laughing, and my boy snapped a picture. And Kane always, I don't know how he really feels. He laughs about it.
Yeah.
But I was like, damn, that was crazy. What the hell was I thinking? At any rate, you as an MC, was it ever daunting for you? Did you ever feel, because you've always been like you've always been you. I never felt like you were trying to compete with anybody ever, but I know Kane and G were going back and forth.
Right.
Were you ever competitive in that way?
I mean, there's a competitive nature just to being an MC. You gotta, but the competition is more in my head than actual out in front of me. It's in my head. It's me competing with verses that I hear from different artists. Like, oh, that verse is crazy. Next time I write something, I got to be on that level or better. So I challenge myself in my own head based on these performances that you talk about, these legendary verses and bars that you talk about. But it's never directed. It's not. I'm not directly competing with any of those brothers.
Yeah.
I'm competing with myself.
And having like a younger demo liking what you're doing, I mean, that really has to be amazing. And I think it's a thing now because hip hop, I won't say it's lost its way. I'm not that guy, right? But I get fewer and fewer rappers coming in here and saying I write rhymes. A lot of
What do they do?
They just go in the studio.
It's a vibe.
And that's exactly what the word is. Vibe.
Well, when okay, vibe is something that we do when we going off the head and we playing around, in the crib or in the studio, but I don't know if a vibe can be a record. I mean, some people are making records that are that way, but I just want to know what the listeners are getting out of that when there's no thought put into the actual words.
Yeah.
Is it just the beat? Is it the rhythm? Like, so, I'm not from that school. That's the safest way. I'm not from that school of thought or that school of working. We want to make records that actually impact people in some way. When they hear it, they feel something.
Yeah.
If they don't feel anything, then we didn't do our job.
And musically, you guys are making songs, real songs. And when I say songs, I mean hooks, choruses, breaks. There's even the album itself. There's skits that tie it together. Talk about that part of it, like actually doing like keep using that word meaty. I gotta stop doing that. But songs that have substance, and like he said, you can feel it.
That's what we do. That's always been we're making songs. There's just, very rarely these days is Ace rapping about nothing on a song.
Yeah, definitely.
So but that in return, that means the beats have to be a certain beat. It changes the whole landscape, and it's a challenge at times, but I love it because he isn't afraid of different type sounding beats or things that push him, because I mean, as an MC, he's been doing this. I don't even know how long. Like, where's inspiration come from? So you know, the quirkier I get or different things I try, it might be like, oh, I never heard something like that. Like now I'm, you know. So while it's like it kind of clamps me down, there's a lot of freedom in the approach to when we create, which is fun.
Yeah.
But I'll bust his chops sometime. I'll be like, we just have a couple straight spitting joints, and like sometimes we do.
Yeah.
Sometimes we do, but it's just got to be on his terms. He's the one writing the rhymes, so. But yeah, and in terms of the skits and all that for the last two albums, that was him. He has those visions, and literally, you know, wrote the script for us to do the skits. You know, not everything is verbatim to the story. It's a little bit embellishing and you know, entertainment purpose, but he'll write it and I'll read it, and you know what I'm saying, he did all that.
And so. Ace makes albums that turn into plays.
Exactly.
You know, sort of.
No, sort of. It did.
Play.
It did. There's no sort of anymore.
I was there.
Yeah.
Me too.
I mean, first of all, congratulations. I mean, I know it's still in progress.
Still in development, the musical.
Yep. But talk about that a little bit, and literally, you know, conceptualizing an album that can translate well to stage.
So the musical that you're referring to, The Falling Season, it's not directly based on an album. It's loosely based on a few albums of mine. Disposable Arts, A Long Hot Summer, and The Falling Season. I take some of the characters from some of the skits on those albums, and I kind of created this world and this story with this main character, and so loosely based. But it was an interesting transition because I'm so used to doing music first, skits second. Now turning around and having to write the entire script first and then write the song second was a new experience for me. Big shouts to Rhymes Over Beats, Patrick Blake and Kate Camerata, who's my dramaturg. She helped me kind of, you know, navigate this new world that I'm completely unfamiliar with, of being a playwright. That's a new title that I now am told that I can call myself.
Fancy.
Yeah.
You got anything you working on? No, you just had the album with Torre.
That's right. Yeah. Shouts to Torre. Dropped that. You know, I'm spoiled now. I get to kind of cherry pick who I work with, which is what I prefer because I'm over the air. When I was younger, it was all about chasing rappers and giving them beats, and sometimes I'll do that. But I'm really locked in with Ace and someone like a Torque as our family. And honestly, most of my stuff now is sound design work. I'm doing a lot of sound design for Kai and a lot of these companies and making sounds that future producers are going to use in their beats, drums and melodies, and it's like a whole new world. So between that and Ace, that's I'm happy. That's where I'm at with it. There'll be some things though. Like I do some sneak things. Like I had a record on Lute's album, who was on Dreamville last year. And you know, when I get motivated, I'll send beats out. But it's not it used to be the main thing, sending beats. Now there's so many other things happening. So
now you have a line talking about Dr. Seuss was a bigot, and I was like, oh my God. It's like I didn't even get a chance to Google it, but that's what I like. I'm not really asking you to explain, but if you want, you can.
Sure.
But I was like, this is what I like. Stuff that I don't know. Tell me something I don't know.
I don't even know about this.
So there's I mean, it's easily Googleable, but a bunch of those books that Dr. Seuss wrote we find out that the characters and the stories were rooted in racist tropes. And it's like I said, it's very easily Googleable. So if it's a fact that people weren't aware of, great. I just opened up a few eyes with that one line.
Damn, my whole childhood is ruined.
I know.
I mean,
Green eggs and ham. Green eggs and ham.
I had all those books. I had all those books. I had them all.
I gotta go look it up too now.
Yeah.
Okay.
How do you guys feel about the overall landscape of hip hop? You know, I've been interviewing a lot of artists. You know, I interviewed Run DMC, and then I also interviewed a young artist. I won't name check him, but you know, just a now
right,
kind of
right.
Lots of followers and stuff, and everybody has a different version of hip hop. Is it? Some are saying, oh, like Eric Sermon, just give it a new name, or, you know what I mean? I tend to think there's just different versions of hip hop and rap music. But what's your take on it?
My take is if you're rapping, actually rapping, then for me it falls under the category of hip hop. But let me back that up. If you're rapping, it falls under the category of rap music.
Okay.
Hip hop as a culture is a lot more than just the music. So it encompasses a lot more than just bars and beats. And so to me, you kind of have to be a product of all of it. You don't have to be a break dancer or be a graffiti artist or be a beatbox, but something in what you're doing has to kind of embody the overall feel of what we have called hip hop for all these years. I don't think that it's changed into something else. If you're stepping into this world, into this culture, and you want to put a song together, that's cool. But just kind of gotta have there has to be a feel to it that makes me know that it's rooted in the same thing that we started off doing in the beginning.
How about you? What's your take on it? I mean, you're from Toronto. Once upon a time, people didn't think about Toronto and hip hop at all.
No. And I think even being an outsider, not from New York, you're super respectful. That's the one thing what happens when we go to Europe. That people are super respectful about the origins. And when we say the word culture, when I think about learning about hip hop, automatically it's 4 elements. It's breakdancing, DJing, MC, and graffiti. You know, and a lot of these young artists, you know, they mention the word culture, and I'm like, but none of that. Those are the things I think of.
Yeah,
I'm about hip hop culture and learning about all those things. And I feel like, especially in Europe, they're very protective of it. Like, I feel like it's more hip hop, and like when we go to Australia and Germany, you see graffiti and all that stuff still happening.
Yeah,
on the trains.
Where I kind of feel like sometimes a lot of the younger generation, not everybody, but they kind of think it's corny. You know, I get that vibe sometimes where I'll be like, use the word culture, but like if I were to say, why don't you have like some younger artists don't even have a DJ.
Yeah, definitely.
They'll take a band over a DJ, which is cool. Like, live your life, do your thing. But a lot of that stuff is lost in the sauce. And I really think it's the starting point for a lot of artists. Where did you start listening to? Who was around you? Who told you? Because if no one's really teaching you, because people taught me, people told me about things. Like, I had elders in Toronto that were fans. And that was really important in how I learned about everything. Yeah. Someone took the time to be like, this is this, this is that. So.
Yeah, that's true. My daughter, I said, yeah, this is Mobb Deep. And she's like, I know who Mobb Deep is. And I'm like, okay, all right. Be cool.
That's good.
That's great.
I did all right. Okay. Well, any last words? Any final statements on?
Pick it up.
Thanks for having us. Richmond Hill in stores.
Pick up Richmond
Friday,
Hill.
January 26th.
Not Queens, Richmond Hill.
Richmond Hill, Ontario, Toronto, Canada. Let's go.
Yeah.